US President Donald Trump faces key allies at the G7 summit in Canada in what's expected to be a showdown over trade. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu and this is The Heat. US trade disputes with the European Union and Canada take centre stage at the G7 summit in Charlevoix, Canada. It's the first time world leaders are meeting face-to-face with US President Donald Trump after he imposed steep tariffs on their steel and aluminium industries. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called the tariffs insulting and unacceptable. French President Emmanuel Macron calls them unlawful and a mistake, but the US President is not backing down.
All of these countries have been taking advantage of the United States on trade. We have massive trade deficits with almost every country. We will straighten that out. And I'll tell you what, it's what I do. It won't even be hard. And in the end, we'll all get along.
CGTN's Roy Ruttenberg is covering the G7 summit and joins us now from Quebec City. Roy, how are the leaders getting along? And more importantly, what do they hope to accomplish at this summit?
Well, I think it's important that we note that Donald Trump made those comments in Washington before he flew to Quebec on Friday morning. He said some other things, including lashing out at Canada, for example, its dairy supply management industry, which is very important to Justin Trudeau and to his supporters here in Canada. But I think it's important to note that we've seen this lashing out approach coming from Donald Trump, first on Twitter on Thursday, now again on Friday. And the message from leaders like Justin Trudeau and the French President Emmanuel Macron has been one that the G7 must be unified in its approach against Donald Trump's trade behaviors. These leaders were angry over these tariffs that the U.S. imposed announced last week on steel and aluminum, 25% and 10% respectively. They've threatened retaliatory measures dollar for dollar. And let me let you know a little bit about their strategy. I know we like all props here. These are oranges. Why am I showing you this? Because if you'll remember, when George W. Bush imposed tariffs on steel, the European Union, after getting permission from the WTO to retaliate, said it would put duties on oranges from Florida, the U.S. state of Florida. At the time, of course, that was a swing state that was important to George W. Bush. His brother, Jeb Bush, was the governor there. They knew it would hit home. And what we're hearing is about retaliatory action against some of these swing states that are important for the Republicans in the upcoming midterm elections in November. So clearly a strategy here. But at the same time, there's a lot of smiles, a lot of handshakes. This is the summit. That's what we're seeing in front of the cameras. But it's unclear what's happening behind closed doors. No doubt this tension is palpable. Anand?
Roy, climate change, also a top priority, especially for the host of the summit, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. What's expected to happen on that front?
Well, that's right. And if you recall, last year, they weren't able to include climate change in their communique, the final communique in Italy, because the U.S. didn't want to sign off on climate change. And of course, 3 days later, Donald Trump announced that he's withdrawing the U.S. from the Paris Agreement on climate change, a move that really angered the French. Emmanuel Macron still hasn't let that go. And of course, here we're seeing climate change on the agenda, things like oceans, the environment. This will be part of the talks on the second day. Now, interestingly enough, the White House confirmed on Thursday that Donald Trump will leave on Saturday at about 10:30 in the morning, which means that he'll be here for discussions about things like women's empowerment, but he's leaving before these uncomfortable talks that he doesn't like about climate change. It's unclear if that will be in any final communique, if there will be one, in fact. But the French President Emmanuel Macron suggesting that the other members, the G6, if you will, might issue their own communique, one that they say reflects the values of the group at its core, whether or not Donald Trump is on board. Anand?
Thanks, Roy. That's CGTN's Roy Ruttenberg reporting there from Quebec City in Canada.